dig in specifically to the goaltending market. And there are a handful of teams and a handful of GMs who are probably looking at their situation between the pipes and, feeling a little bit of pressure. And you put together a list that'll go up on Daily Faceoff. You have three teams that you believe should be on, we'll call it high alert when it comes to their goaltending: the Leafs, the Oilers, and the Kraken. Of those three, Frank, which one would you rank number one in terms of level of concern?
The Toronto Maple Leafs, and they get the nod over the Oilers because the Oilers, this has gone on for so long, and I wonder, or worry, I guess, if they do end up making a trade, will it be too little, too late? The Oilers are just a 50-50 shot to make the Stanley Cup playoffs at this point. They've got a lot of work to do to get in. A goalie could certainly help if they can get on a run, but the Leafs are squarely in a playoff spot. There's pretty much nothing they can do in order to not get in. They'd have to lose a ton down the stretch, and they've been winning in spite of their goaltending. But still, the fact of the matter is this for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Out of their last 26 games, in 14 of them, they've given up 4 or more goals. They also have a 16-8-2 record in that span, which is why maybe this run doesn't feel as bad as it should between the pipes. You watch Jack Campbell, even in Tuesday night's game, he's battling. He's trying. Some of the goals, certainly in the second period, weren't his fault. But at the end of the night, there's still a 4 spot on the board against the worst team, or one of the worst teams in the National Hockey League, in the Seattle Kraken. That's 4 games in a row that it's been 4 or more goals. Peter Mrazek has been given every opportunity to run with the ball, and he's dropped it. He's given no show of confidence in either one of the Toronto Maple Leafs netminders. I know that everyone in the organization is behind Jack Campbell, but for me, how could you bet this roster, with the way that they've played, their ability to score, and especially given their playoff woes in scoring, on this goaltending? When you get to the Stanley Cup playoffs, can they really outrun that for a 4-round slog? I don't believe that they can. They haven't really shown in the last few weeks that they have the ability to turn the corner or that they will rebound. This is a crisis of confidence. And I think in a lot of ways, Jack Campbell has sort of regressed to the goaltender that a lot of people thought that he might be, which is why even as he was going on at the beginning of the season, through the holidays at a 941 clip, that people were saying this probably isn't going to last. And he wasn't really in the Vezina talk for top goaltender.
Quickly, as we wrap up this segment, you had a handful of teams that you had at medium level of concern: Mini, Vegas, and Washington. Of those three, which one is the biggest risk to maybe get moved up into that high level?
It's Vegas, and it's all squarely on Robin Lehner's health. Quickly, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV, but I've reported this, and we've talked about it a lot. He has a torn labrum in his shoulder. How long is it going to hold up? Is it 2 games? Is it 8 games? Is it the rest of the playoffs and however long the Vegas season lasts? I think that's the hope for Vegas as he's battling through it. But what if it doesn't? And what if it happens and flares up after the trade deadline? That's another significant gamble on Laurent Brossoit to carry the load for a Vegas team that's in cup or bust mode. They've got Mark Stone, who will be healthy for the playoffs, hopefully. They've got Jack Eichel. They've made all these moves. They have an expensive roster. Laurent Brossoit, is that really the answer?
Yeah, and that's a fair point as well. Let's move on here to maybe some potential solutions for these teams and maybe the prices that they could have to pay if they want to fill the hole between their pipes. And you've outlined a few players who are on the market. These guys are on your trade targets list. The high acquisition costs: Fleury, Georgiev, and Blackwood. It's interesting because Fleury, obviously a pure rental. The other two could be long-term solutions for an organization. When you see high acquisition cost, is that a first-round pick? Is that maybe more than that, maybe less than that? What's that range you're looking at?
Well, I think for Marc-Andre Fleury, certainly that's a first-round pick. That's what the Chicago Blackhawks are asking for, because like I've done in this exercise, the Chicago Blackhawks look at this and they say, well, of all the goalies that are available prior to the deadline, give me one that's a true guaranteed difference maker. Marc-Andre Fleury has the pedigree, has the Stanley Cups, has the recent success as the reigning Vezina Trophy winner, to say you can inject this guy into your roster, into your locker room, and your team's going to be better instantaneously. He's the only guy out there that you can say that about. So they're asking for a first round pick. I think the limiting factor here is the fact that Marc-Andre Fleury holds all the cards. He's only going to go to a place that he wants to go. That's the handshake agreement that they've reportedly had with the Fleury camp and the Blackhawks since he decided to resume his career and play out the final year of his deal. These other two guys in Alexander Georgiev and Mackenzie Blackwood, they could be interesting pieces. The problem is, well, first off, with Blackwood, he's been hurt. He has a left heel injury, and he's still probably a couple weeks away from returning and could be back before the deadline. Georgiev and Blackwood have both struggled the last couple seasons. So, you're rolling the dice a little bit in terms of immediate impact. Maybe if you work with them longer term, you can get their game back to where it needed to be. But Fleury's the only guy that really sticks or stands out as someone that you can count on. And the Rangers have been asking for a first round pick for Georgiev for a while. They haven't gotten it. And I don't think they're going to, given, look back to last summer in the trade market. Alex Nedeljkovic had a heck of a run in Carolina. He only ends up bringing back a third round pick. So there hasn't really been much of a market in terms of asking and getting that price.
Moving on to the guys who you have set at that kind of medium acquisition cost. It's an interesting list to me because Holtby, a guy that's won in the playoffs before, he's having a strong year with Dallas. Forsberg's having a career year in Ottawa. Then you have Jonas Korpisalo, who is just kind of having an average, below average year, I think you could probably say. Just quickly while we wrap up this segment, what are you hearing on those three in terms of a potential cost?
Well, Korpisalo is not coming back to Columbus. I'd imagine a non-playoff team that wants to jump the market should be interested as a guy that they could give a little test run to close out this season and then potentially sign as their goalie for next year to get ahead of the game of musical chairs. Forsberg is interesting because he's played really well, .921 save percentage on a team that's 28th place in the league. So he's been good in a tough situation. And not only that, I think the acquisition price is maybe the most reasonable in comparison to his actual play this season. Holtby's been good. He's rebounded to form. He's got a Stanley Cup win in 2018 with the Caps on his resume. I think the Dallas Stars, for a team that's in go for it mode, that probably is keeping Klingberg, is probably keeping Pavelski, and in fact, probably re-signing him, that Holtby is one guy that you might be able to recoup some assets for because you have Anton Khudobin waiting or playing in Texas in the AHL. You can bring Khudobin up if he's healthy, have him back up Jake Ottinger, who's clearly the guy, and then maybe get a little bit something as opposed to having all of your UFAs, including Holtby and Radulov, walking for absolutely nothing in the summer.
Quickly, is this a buyer's or a seller's market?
This is probably a buyer's market. I think there's more goalies available, maybe than teams end up actually doing something. But it's really hard to say. Like, I think at the end, it might just be neutral.